Okay, we're live in the San Francisco Bay Area with WildCare, and who are we hanging out with today?
We are hanging out with a very young barn owl. Huh. We are feeding him right now. He is an orphan bird that came to WildCare. Melanie, you want to let us know his story?
He's a fledgling. He left his owl box. Unfortunately, it was not a safe place. It was in the middle of a racetrack, so we couldn't get him back because he would just fledge again. He's at the fledging stage. So what we're doing is getting him to be self-feeding, and then he's going to go into what we call a hack box, which is another active owl box with other owls with feeding talents, where he can learn how to fly and hunt with them and join the family.
So while this little barn owl is one of the nearly 4,000 animals a year that WildCare treats, not all of them are this noisy. This is a characteristic of barn owls. When they are in care in the wildlife hospital, it doesn't matter how old they are. This is the noise that they make. So we're currently feeding him. So we are a wildlife hospital and a nature education center. Oops, we didn't quite get that piece. WildCare is a wildlife hospital and nature education center. We're located, as Lasso said, in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're in San Rafael, California, just north of San Francisco. And each year we treat about 4,000 animals in the wildlife hospital with the goal of treating these animals and getting them back out to the wild as soon and as easily as possible. So in the case of this little owl, he is a fledgling, so he's not feeding himself yet, but he very soon will be. We're actually going to move out of this room, and we're going to get just a brief walkthrough of the very cluttered confines of the wildlife hospital. We're going to go into our songbird room, where we're going to meet some other wildlife patients. So the next baby that we're going to meet, we're introducing you to baby animals right now because it is feeding time for them. And in the wildlife hospital, these little guys need to be fed very, very frequently. So this little animal is a baby crow. He came in as a tiny, tiny baby with almost no feathers on him, with no feathers on him at all. And over the course of the last 3 weeks, he has grown into a fairly feathered, is he still considered a nestling, Lucy?
He is. He's keeping his nest.
He's staying in his nest. Yep, absolutely. Oh, we're going to poop. Yep. Yep, a little bit of stretching. Yeah, exactly. The baby crows are some of our very, very favorite patients at WildCare. They are so clumsy and uncoordinated and incredibly delightful. And when crows are this age, they actually have blue eyes. You can tell a baby crow because he has blue eyes. Once he gets older, his eyes turn brown. So we feed this little guy. How often is he being fed?
He's fed every hour.
So he is fed every hour, and we really want to take this moment to always say to people, when you're looking at baby birds like these, any of the baby animals that you see at WildCare, you never want to try to raise a baby wild animal on your own. These animals need to come into a wildlife center like WildCare, where they can get the specialized care that they really, really need. So he's being fed every hour. He has an incredibly diverse diet. We see far too often the dangers of people trying to raise birds like this on their own. And he will grow up with other crows. He'll spend as little time as possible with humans, and then eventually he will be released to the wild as a wild crow once he's old enough. So that is the goal of everything we do here at WildCare. We're going to move around the table now, and we are going to meet next a baby nuthatch. Oh, he's so charming, isn't he?
This is a little fledgling pygmy nuthatch. So they are found often around pine trees. They are bark foragers, and so you'll see them scaling up trees vertical, looking for little bug snacks. They're insectivores, but they also eat a little bit of seed. One interesting fact about them is that they are cooperative nesters, and so they will often lay their eggs together and raise all the children together. And parents will have a little nest helper, which could be young raised from a previous brood, or other adults as well. And this guy is eating mealworms for me, and he loves them a lot. He actually just started taking food for me about an hour ago.
Do we know how he's here?
So he was found bouncing around on the ground. A woman who had found him put him back on a tree, hoping that he would go back to his family. And he ended up going back to the woods. So she brought him in just to keep him away from danger because he was almost hit by a car a couple of times. And he is a very particular type of species. He needs very specialized care. And so he's one that we're going to transfer to an organization that actually specializes in these smaller insectivores. And she has others in care around the same age, so he'll have companions, which is what we always want for young songbirds, is to have conspecifics so that they grow up and know how to act appropriately.
Yep, exactly. Very, very cool. So, Lucy, is it true that you cannot put a baby bird back in the nest?
That is not true. So that's a myth. So birds do have some sense of smell, but if you handle a baby bird and put it back in the nest, the parents will still be able to take it.
Excellent.
And they have a little baby bird.
Another little one to show. This guy, oh my goodness, that is a tiny baby. Holy cow.
This is a baby American robin who came into our hospital yesterday morning. He still had a portion of his egg attached to his body. He had fallen out of the tree that he was in and landed on the ground. He has a couple lacerations on the back of his head.
Oh yeah, you can see him.
And so we kind of gently removed the fragments of the shell, and we're able to warm him up in time. And actually today he started gaping for us. So for the first 12 to 24 hours that they're in our care, if they still have the yolk present on their belly, we don't necessarily need to feed them. So he got fluids, but this morning when I came in, he was gaping and asking for food, which is just what we want. And he's been pooping consistently and been doing really well. So we're very hopeful that he's going to grow up.
Fluff on the top of his head. So he's an American robin, you said?
Yes.
How can you
yes.
tell?
Well, he came in a little blue egg, actually. And there are a variety of different things that you can look at to determine what type of species a little nestling songbird is. And so this little baby has a bright yellow mouth, which is usually indicative of insectivores, and robins are insectivores. They're big fruit eaters as well. And then also the little tufts of fuzz on the sides of his head are also characteristic of baby robins. And then size is also the way to decide which bird he is.
Just phenomenal that something this young can survive.
Yeah, so this bird is really just about a day old.
Yeah, I was going to ask. A day old, wow.
Isn't that
Yeah.
absolutely mind-boggling that they actually are able to survive? Now, because he has injuries, there was no attempt to put him back in the nest,
Exactly.
correct?
Yeah.
You can really see how incredibly challenging it is to care for babies like this. Look at that little guy. He's curling up like he does in the nest.
So he
And-
eats very little each time, but
Yeah.
he is gaping for us, so we're very excited and hopeful that he's going to make a recovery.
How often are you feeding him?
This guy's every 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, it is just a crazy process what we do in our songbird room. We treat nearly 1,000 songbirds every year at WildCare in our bird room. And they're everybody from little guys this tiny to the baby crow you saw to ones that are starting to fledge, get a few more feathers, and eventually, of course, all of these babies will hopefully grow up and be able to be released back to the wild. Let's let him get back into his incubator. Perfect. Moving along, we are now going to meet some mammals. Everybody's favorites, the baby skunks. Oh, these are just some of our most charming patients. We'll see if these guys eat. They've been with their foster mom. Oh, there we go. That's good. Do we know these babies' stories, Jacqueline?
Yes. So some people had seen a litter of 5 with mom playing in their front yard. A couple hours later, mom was gone, but these 2 were left. The thing about skunks is moms can't count, meaning if they have one skunk, they have all their babies.
Oh, yeah.
So they got left behind, and since it was cold out, and they were cold when they came in, we decided to keep them rather than reuniting.
Do we frequently reunite babies like this?
Yes, we can try as long as they're healthy, but again, since they were cold, we didn't want to risk that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So he's not really sucking on the formula. What's he doing?
So he's lapping more. He's at the age where he's going to start to, in a little bit, get offered scrambled eggs, and so he's trying to chew on it.
Got it. So I know there's a very much there are issues with skunks. Totally understand that. They certainly have a very, very strong smell. But skunks actually are quite astonishing animals, and we always try to encourage people when we talk about skunks and when we meet baby skunks like this to really appreciate your neighbor the skunk, right? So the main thing that skunks eat, they're carnivores, so they eat a lot of protein. They love to eat slugs and snails. Lucy, Amanda, they love to eat slugs and snails. So if you have a skunk that wanders around in your yard, you are going to have all of your slugs and snails taken care of. The other thing that they love to eat is rats and mice. And as an adult skunk will eat a lot of rats and mice. So they're going to be out there eating those rodent pests that you don't necessarily want in your yard. So yeah, they do stink if you startle them. But the thing about skunks is they only spray if they're startled. This was something I learned when I first started working at WildCare, but the skunk doesn't want to spray you. He has a limited amount of spray in his anal glands, and he doesn't want to use that on you if he doesn't happen to. So he will give you lots and lots of warning before. Let's see, this guy's doing kind of the behavior that you'll see. They'll stick their tail straight up in the air, and they'll stamp. He says, "What have you been eating?" And they will give you lots and lots of warning before they spray. So they give you, go for it, plenty of time to back away. Did you see that the startle reaction? They'll give you plenty of time to back away and not actually get sprayed. Now, the problem is, I think, for most people that their dogs get sprayed. And what we've discovered is that dogs just plain don't understand skunk body language. If a dog sees an animal that sticks its tail up in front of him, the dog thinks that's an invitation to sniff. So unfortunately, that means that he comes rushing over to the skunk, and the skunk, feeling that he is actually being threatened by a predator, will spray. So what we tell people to do is to always give skunks a lot of warning before you go out in your yard. So if you have one that's taking care of the slugs and snails and the rats and mice in your yard, if you're going to let your dog out, if you're going to go out into your yard, kind of open the door, make some noise, give the skunk some warning and some time to scuttle away. And the skunk will disappear and leave you alone, not spray your dog, and continue to do the things that he does that make him a good neighbor for you. But it's avoiding that spray and giving them the opportunity not to spray you that makes for a really healthy and good relationship with your neighborhood skunks. They really do provide a service for us, and they're wonderful animals. All of us that take care of them in our foster care at WildCare are very, very fond of these guys. And watching them grow up wild and turn into appropriately aggressive little skunks is just one of our very, very favorite things. So the goal with these babies, as with all of the wildlife that we treat at WildCare, is to raise them and then release them back into the wild as soon as they're able to. Do you know at what age we release skunks? I don't know if I know that.
I think 4 months.
4 months, yep. So they will go from nursing babies like this to then eating very solid foods. They'll be introduced some soft foods, and then they will eventually be totally weaned and have their own an adult diet that they'll have, spending less and less time around humans. And then eventually this baby and his sibling and all of the skunks that we have, last count I think we had 36 baby skunks in care at WildCare, kind of an astonishing number. And all of these guys will go back out into the wild to be part of the team that takes care of rats and mice and slugs and snails and all those animals.
So an interesting thing about this skunk, if you notice, he doesn't have a blaze.
Oh yeah, he doesn't. He has a totally black face.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, the different skunks, you can actually tell them apart because they'll have different amounts of white on their faces and actually in their tails as well. So yeah, so he's very different from his sibling who had a fairly bright white stripe down her face.
So you had mentioned that skunk moms can't count. Is that particular
Right.
is that particular to skunks, or is that just a general animal thing?
That
Or?
is particular to skunks.
That's interesting. So a raccoon mom would know that she didn't have all her babies?
Yes.
Oh, that's very interesting. I know opossums also don't count. They will carry their babies around on their backs, and as soon as the baby falls off, that's the moment that baby is weaned. So it seems like ducks can't count either. You'll find mama duck swimming around with her ducklings, and if one gets lost, she doesn't have any sense that he's missing. All right, we're going to say goodbye to our little stinky friends here, and we've got one more baby to meet today. Oh, we're going to go over there? Okay. So we're going to look at our skunks for just one more second while my team does a little transferring. Oh, that stomping behavior.
Did our special guest make it?
Our special guests did. Yep, they're
Yes.
right here. We've got our adorable little baby raccoons. They are some of the most delightful babies that we have. None of these animals make good pets. It is a very, very significant thing that we teach at WildCare, that wild animals absolutely do not make good pets. There is Nothing about these guys. They're very cute when they're small, but they do grow up to be wild animals, and eventually they turn into the animal that they are, in this case a raccoon or a skunk.
Wow.
And I know, it's a very little one. And they make absolutely terrible pets. So it is very, very important to get them to a trained wildlife care center like WildCare and let them grow up wild. There are so many domestic animals, cats, dogs, hamsters, guinea pigs, other domestic animals that desperately need homes and that thrive on human companionship. Please make one of those your pet instead of one of these. These guys deserve to be out in the wild. It's funny, I know there's a certain amount of dislike of raccoons as well because they are so smart. They're one of the species called a commensal species that has learned how to live with humans. They do they've figured out how to live off us, and they know how to get our food and our garbage and our pet food, and people can find that very irritating, and I certainly understand that. But these guys also provide a tremendous amount of rodent control for your neighborhoods. So, we're going to give him a little burp here, just like any baby. You don't want to have any air trapped. I love how you can see his little stripy tail here. Isn't that just so delightful? And he's already got his little mask. We have 2 of these little guys that we're going to feed.
And this one's eyes are just open.
Oh, yeah. So raccoons' baby eyes open at 21 days. Is that correct?
Yes.
23 days. Okay. So these guys are born like most mammals, not like humans, but like most mammals, these guys are born with their eyes and ears tightly sealed shut. And this one is just at the point where her little eyes are opening. And we want to be really careful that the first thing she sees is another raccoon, so we always raise these babies together with conspecifics, is what we call that. And so she'll see her other fellow baby raccoon as the first thing she sees, and these babies will spend time in foster care until they are self-feeding. Same thing, and then they will eventually be released back to the wild. That's what WildCare tries to do. I think we're all done here. We got a little more. No, keep going. Sorry. Keep going. You get a little frantic. How often are these babies eating, Amanda? Every 4.5 hours, and I will note that is 24 hours a day. Am I correct? Yes, so you get here's Amanda with her other baby. So these little guys require a tremendous amount of care, and it really is such a challenge to raise these properly and get them back out into the wild the way they should be. And we take so much pride in the fact that our babies grow up healthy and they grow up wild, and then they get released back into the wild as soon as they're ready. He certainly likes his formula.
Very frantic, though.
Very frantic about it, yes. Well, we're grateful to everyone for joining us today at WildCare in our Wildlife Hospital for a look at some of our most amazing little patients. Again, all of these guys will grow up to be released back to the wild. If you want to learn more about WildCare, you can visit us online at discoverwildcare.org. And we have amazing animals, again, about 4,000 animals that we treat every year in the Wildlife Hospital. And it really is an incredible place. So check us out online, and thanks for hosting us on the Dodo, and hopefully see you soon.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and thank you, WildCare.
Thank you.